Hi everybody, so today I've got the Tom Ford Architecture Soft Matte Blurring Foundation to test for you. And yesterday I did a side-by-side test of this alongside the Shade Illuminate because I've been trying to figure out in my late 40s which one is looking best on my skin with all the skin changes that keep going on for me and probably everyone out there my age watching this. So I will be including information on that, but in this video itself I will be trying on just this for you so you can see how this wears. I'll be using a brush and a sponge and primer on one side and not on the other, so we can see all the different ways that this might work for you. And if you're new here, hi, my name's Hannah, I'm 47 as I said. I'm not a professional, just somebody who really loves makeup, and here on my channel I just love to share all of my passion for makeup, show you different looks, beauty news, anything I think might interest you. So please do like and subscribe below if you think that you'd enjoy that. And my skin is fair to light and with neutral undertones, and it's combination, mostly dry but with, well, I keep saying oily T-zone, sometimes oily, sometimes not, mostly dry, sometimes not, but generally combination, but forever changing because of my age, I think. Anyway, let's get on to the video. So here is the bottle on this Architecture foundation. It really is a beautiful bottle. It's got this frosted glass, and inside it's got the gold pump. So it's got a really nice finish. You get 30 mils of product in here, and it costs £120 and $150 in the US. So this one is a real investment. So for me, someone who doesn't particularly like mattes, I've been going for radiant, but I am starting to sort of change my mind. I'm sort of flipping in between the two. This is a big investment for something I might not really like. I believe this might be replacing the Traceless Soft Matte Foundation from Tom Ford because they seem to be withdrawing all of the shades. I haven't seen it confirmed anywhere. I don't have that, to be honest, because I didn't buy mattes. And I do believe the bottle for that was quite similar to the primer. So it's plastic, and one of these ones where you just twist up to get the pump. So and I think it was about £70, maybe £80. I'm not entirely sure, but I know it was quite a bit less. So the packaging is very different. I think the packaging is very high end with Tom Ford's new foundation here. It really is very, very beautiful, very luxe. And if you compare it here to the Shade Illuminate, the Shade Illuminate has not the frosted, it has the clear glass, and then it has the gold on the outside. So it's just which one do you prefer, really. This also has the gold pump. I love the Shade Illuminate actually. I think it looks extremely beautiful if you leave it out, but they are both gorgeous. Very heavy, very luxe feeling. So the Architecture foundation comes in 40 shades. It says that it controls oil, gives 24-hour wear, it's transfer proof, non-creasing, humidity resistant. It says suitable for all skin types, a lightweight fluid, primed for seamless application and blurred precision. And the difference with this one and the old formula is this one is infused with hyaluronic acid and antioxidants, which will help to hydrate the skin even though it's giving you that matte finish. Now that is the key difference. I don't know if anybody saw me review the new MAC Fluid Foundation, but that was basically the change that they've made as well by introducing the skincare. So giving you the matte finish with the skincare, which in theory should be more lightweight, more comfortable and better for your skin, but still give the same coverage. But I did find with MAC that the original formula still sat better on my skin by the end of the day because the hydration coming from the new formula was actually starting to show shine on my face more. So this is something we need to look at with this today. And I'll quickly show you on my hand how these two look from a consistency point of view. So I've given the new Architecture a good shake. You can see it's exceptionally runny. And I'm now going to just put this all over my hand because I want to show you something with this. This has a very strong scent. It's like skincare scent. But anyway, can you see how blurred out my hand is? Very, very quickly. And it does look like it's got that soft matte finish. But what I can tell you is already, and it's been 1 minute, maybe less, it's bone dry. It has dried down that fast. This really dries down incredibly quickly, and I don't think I've ever come across a formula that dries down quite as quickly as this. So that's that's really good, and it probably means you don't need to use powder, or you can use certainly a lot less, because this does not need to be set down. It really is extremely dry. It'd be interesting to test for transfer actually, because it's been on my hand for 2 minutes. Wow, look at that. No transfer off my hand at all after less than 2 minutes. It really does dry down exceptionally fast. So if I show you the shades and Illuminate, this one is also pretty runny, very similar, maybe almost slightly less runny, but very similar. I'll just rub this one in. So there's the Shade and Illuminate. You can see the difference straight away because you're seeing that radiance. And what I'm not getting is that instant dry down, although to be fair, it is drying down. I'm just going to give it a little bit longer. If you look at the two together, so here we have the new architecture, and there we have Shade and Illuminate. So the coverage seems stronger to me. If you look at the way my veins are covered on my hands, the coverage seems stronger here on the new architecture and a bit less on the Shade and Illuminate. The Shade and Illuminate still hasn't fully dried down, although it has dried down quite a bit. So this is definitely one I think that will dry down without needing powdering too much as well. But if I do that tissue test, the same amount of time I gave the first one, yeah, just the tiniest little bit there. So these really do dry down very well, both of them to be fair, but the new one exceptionally fast and just zero transfer. So that's something. And just for quick comparison, I thought I'd show you the Hourglass Ambient Foundation, which you might already have in your collection and be using it for a very similar purpose to the Tom Ford Architecture, looking for that soft matte finish. This one does offer a bit of radiance, and this shade is a little bit different. So you will notice when I put this on my hand, this one's a bit warmer. So there's Hourglass. You can see straight away it's a thick cream, it's not runny at all, so it's not lightweight like the Tom Ford Architecture. One thing to remember here is I'm rubbing an entire pump into the back of my hand, which is way too much for that amount of skin. So again, it's incredible that the Tom Ford one dried down the way it did. So there is the Hourglass finish compared with Tom Ford. So again, I think the coverage looks a bit better. I don't know if it's just because of the shine that you're seeing my vein a bit more on my hand here with the Hourglass. But the key difference for me is that this one does not dry down. This one I think always needs a bit of powder when I've used this, whereas this one, you just wouldn't know it was there, would you? I've just got the correction, but you just would not know it's there. And if I just put a bit of tissue on the back of my hand here with the Hourglass, see straight away how much is coming off. Obviously this is within 1 minute, so I'm not trying to be unfair here to Hourglass. I'm just wanted to show you just how impressive the dry down is for the Tom Ford. So when I said that this primer looked just like the Traceless Soft Matte Foundation, that's because this is the Traceless Soft Matte Primer, so they have the same packaging. And this is the primer I'll be using today, but just on one side of the face, just to see if by the end of my look, are my pores a little bit less visible having used the primer, or do we not need a primer with this foundation? Ideally, it would be good if we didn't, because this foundation is so expensive, it should be able to work on its own in theory. Certainly it's looking like we don't need powder, isn't it? So I've just got one pump of the primer. I'm going to put that especially here where my pores do show up quite a lot, this particular section, so nose and around there. I'll just rub it into the rest of the face on the one side. So I don't know if you can see there, but the pores on this side of the face are very much blurred out and disappeared, whereas here they are really obvious. So let's see now if the foundation can do that without the primer. So I have the shade 0.5 Porcelain. I just wanted to thank one of my really trusty subscribers, Two Left Feet, who recommended this shade because we are skin shade twins, and you were spot on because this really is a good match, so thank you for that. So with one pump now on the back of my hand, I'm going to use a brush on this side. My skincare today, by the way, I've got a very light moisturiser, so not a lot. And I put that on about an hour ago, and I've got my SPF 50. Both of those about an hour ago. So that's about a quarter of the pump at the moment, and I'm using my BK Beauty 101. I'm just going to pat this in for now. You do really notice the fragrance as you're applying it. It really is quite a strong, fresh skincare scent, which is quite pleasant, but if you don't like fragrance, then that's something you do need to think about. And you can see that I've pretty much done very little, and it's already worked its way into my skin, which is definitely something you find with good foundations, but also I'm finding foundations containing skincare like hyaluronic acid are just really good at absorbing straight away into my skin quite naturally without me having to really work it in. I'm just going to add a little bit where I can still see a bit of redness, but I don't want to add too much because I did find yesterday I did a full pump on one side and it was just too much, and it did actually look a bit cakey here. I did need to work it out. It was too much for my skin, so I'm just adding a little bit there where I want a bit more coverage. You can see just how buildable this is, so this can be built up. It doesn't actually say on the website what the coverage is for this, but I would say this is giving me medium coverage, and you could probably build it up to the medium to full really, because you can see the coverage I've just got there is pretty good. Another thing though with the dry down is you don't have much time, so don't leave it on your face and think you've got ages. I would definitely do your face in sections with this. Unless you're working like lightning with a sponge or a brush, I wouldn't put it all over your face because it's incredibly fast dry down. I'm noticing a tiny bit of caking coming up here, so I'm just going to take it off because I did forget when I put my eyebrow products on to give a good wipe here, because it really does interfere with foundation and cause caking if I don't do that. So if you get caking in this area, that might be why. So there we have one side of my face with the architecture on. You see the coverage I'm getting is excellent. It does look so skin-like. It really does, and it's so dry. It's like if anyone was to touch your skin, they really wouldn't believe you were wearing makeup. Quite incredible, to be honest. I've just never experienced that with a foundation before. So I've just added another pump to the back of my hand, and this time I'm going to go in with my Beauty Blender sponge to see how it applies. Well, obviously the disadvantage of a sponge is that it absorbs the product. So I've got a damp sponge, so if you're not familiar with sponges, just rinse it underneath the water and really squeeze out all the water. Put it inside a bit of kitchen roll to really get the excess water out, so it's slightly damp, very, very slightly damp, but that means it's not going to absorb as much of the product. I need to quickly get going before this dries down. I haven't used a sponge for a while. I've been using brushes only. I seem to flit in and out of thinking which is better. And straight away you can see the coverage is a lot less because I'm using a sponge. So it is eating the product, and when the foundation costs as much as this, I don't think that's the best idea because you're going to pretty much use double the amount. So it's going to last half the time, and that's probably not worth it. For that reason alone, I would recommend the brush. Yeah, the coverage is a lot less because you can still see redness on my nose, and it hasn't covered up any of my pigmentation there really. I'll go in with more there and there. There we are, that's better. More on the forehead. So there is the full application with sponge and brush, and I do think that my texture is actually showing up a bit more on the side where I use the brush. So I think the sponge has actually given me a nicer finish. I did need to use a bit more product. At the same time, when I say a bit more, well, I finished the pump, so I used a full pump on this side and I used 2/3 that side, so that's really the difference. But it's a slightly better, it's slightly cakey looking here, but on this side with the sponge it isn't. It's also worth bearing in mind this is the side I had the primer. Now I do wonder a little bit with the primer, is it blocking those pores so that when I'm using a foundation with hyaluronic acid in and my skin wants to absorb it, maybe it's not fully absorbing and getting into the pores in quite the natural way it has on this side. So I'm starting to think maybe it's not just the sponge, or even maybe it's nothing to do with the sponge. Maybe the foundation is just sitting that much better on my skin without the primer. I do much prefer this side, you know. I don't know if you can see on camera, but this happened yesterday. It does look a bit cakey. Now I did get rid of this yesterday. And the way I got rid of that was at the very end I put a moisturising spray over and just patted it in, and it did go. We'll see how it looks at the end, but definitely preferring this side. And I do think that my pores have been blurred out, so the foundation has blurred it in the way that the primer can anyway. So at the moment I would say not to even use a primer for this. I really like the way this looks. Anyway, I'm now going to go off and do the rest of my makeup, and I'll be back to show you how all of my makeup is looking on this. I'm going to pretty much stick to powder products. I think I will just put powder on because I don't want to disturb the foundation. So I'll be back to show you. I'm just quickly popping back on to show you how I powder just where I put concealer and just into the T-zone. So I did this yesterday. I didn't powder anywhere else, and I found it to be completely sufficient. I think even powdering on top of this foundation would just be too much for my mature skin. It doesn't really particularly want a lot of powder on, but it certainly doesn't need it because, as we've seen, it's just totally dried down. But because this is an oily area for me, I'm just going to be a little bit cautious and pop some here, down the nose, and here. I'm using my Hourglass Vanish Airbrush pressed powder, which I've been using all the time lately. I just don't feel like it needs it. I think my skin looks like it normally looks after I've applied this Vanish powder, which says a lot about this foundation so far. Anyway, just put my makeup on and be back. So there's my final look with all makeup now applied. So like I said, I was only going to apply powders, which I've stuck to. So there are no cream products because I didn't want them to slightly move the foundation. Now, one thing which is exactly what happened yesterday, but this actually happened with both shades and Illuminate and with the Architecture, was caking around there and there in the first sort of half an hour to an hour of application. Now I'm noticing I've got that again here, but I haven't got it there. I'll just get a little bit closer to camera to see if you can see that. The slight caking is there. I don't know if you can pick this up on camera, but it definitely is. I'm looking in a 10 magnification mirror. It's not terrible, but it is there. Whereas when you look on this side, it isn't. And I think that that must have something to do with the primer. So yesterday when this happened, I used my Delilah Hydrating Mist, just a tiny bit. So I only put it on this side where I've got the issue. And then I just went in with a sponge to sort of pat the mist in, because I just felt it was happening because of too much powder, even though I didn't really apply much. And that seemed to help once it dries down. I won't do the same on this side. And straight away that seems to have fixed that. But I think it's very interesting that the primer side is just looking so much better. So bearing in mind this is a primer which blurs and basically cancels out all of my pores. When I put it on this side, you really couldn't see my pores at all. So this one is just the foundation, and it's actually, my pores look better. There's no caking and it's a smoother finish. So definitely for me, the best way to apply this is with no primer whatsoever. So I've just got that very light layer of moisturiser from an hour previously and straight in with the foundation. I did also use a sponge on this side, which I think maybe did give a neater finish. So maybe the absolute best application is no primer. Maybe use a brush if you want to, but go in with that sponge to really press it in, which is something I tend to do anyway, and I didn't do on this side, saying that. So maybe that played a part in that, because it dries down so fast, I didn't really have time. So if you are going to go in with a brush then a sponge, be quick, or use a sponge for the whole thing, but you will use up about a third more product. So that's something just for you to think about. But yeah, this side is definitely looking better. So yesterday I used no setting powder, no setting spray. It was completely unnecessary. And I'm now going to show you the clip of my final check-in so you can see how both sides looked with Shade and Illuminate and with the architecture. So here's that clip. I'm just showing you quickly my daylight check-in. I've removed the volume because it was just too noisy. So this is the Shade and Illuminate side after 2 hours in direct sun. And this side here is the architecture. Hi everyone, so this is me from yesterday and it's a bit different. I'm doing it this way, but I wanted to do a check-in from yesterday because I used both of the different foundations, so I wanted you to see the difference. So before I say anything else, if you just look at my face now, do you think it's obvious which one is on which side? So the two I'm wearing is obviously the architecture as we are reviewing today, and the Shade and Illuminate, one on each side. I've worn the Tom Ford primer on both sides for this, and with powdering, actually I've just got a light on there on my magnification mirror, I'll switch that off. With powdering, I only powdered my T-zone. I didn't powder anything else. So can you tell, sorry my dog's decided to come in and you can hear it pattering around. Oh, they're both in, oh sorry. Anyway, can you tell which side of my face is which? Because if I was guessing and I didn't know the answer to this, I think I'd be saying Shade and Illuminate is this side, because this side is looking more radiant. Ignore this bit here where I've got highlighter on, so if you just look at the rest of my face, I'd say there's a bit more radiance coming through, especially around there. Now it's not grease, because despite not powdering down, this foundation really does dry down and set itself, which is brilliant. So there is no grease coming through anywhere. But if you look at my forehead, and if you look here, where there's definitely no glowy products whatsoever, would you say that this side is Shade and Illuminate? Which would make sense, because it's definitely a bit more radiant. And the answer to that is no, it's not. This is Shade and Illuminate, and this is the architecture soft matte. So that's kind of surprised me quite a lot, to be honest. So if you're looking for, if you have combination skin like me, obviously everyone's going to be different, so don't necessarily think this will happen with your skin. But if you are looking for a really matte foundation and you have skin like mine, which is combination with oily T-zone, I don't think you're going to think this is really matte. But at the same time, it's very perfecting and it's really beautiful. So whilst it is giving a bit of radiance from beneath, not grease, it's definitely kept those oils at bay as it says it will. It definitely looks more radiant, which is really strange. I think that also says that if you've got the Shade and Illuminate and you enjoy it, you just don't obviously enjoy that anyway. You're not likely to want the matte one, but you probably wouldn't need the matte one. But then we do have the key difference here being the SPF, so if you wanted to have those perfect photos, you would want this side, even though it is going to have a bit of a glow in the photos, so I don't know how you'd feel about that. I am wearing the Rare Beauty blush today, which is exceptionally shiny, so please don't factor that in. But yeah, the Shade and Illuminate has got factor 50 in it, whereas the architecture doesn't, but I think they both give a radiant finish. Certainly they do now. But looking at everything else anyway, so on to the next point really. How has this worn throughout the day? Well, I always wear setting powder all over the face and I always use a setting spray, and I've done neither today, which is unheard of for me. So without setting powder here, I'm really impressed because it actually looks exactly the same as it did this morning for me. I can't see any change. This really is showing where the money is coming from when it comes to an expensive foundation, because I don't think a foundation has looked quite this perfect after 8 hours of wear. Never without powder and setting spray, that's for sure. So I think this gets top marks for longevity, it really does. And caking, there was a tiny bit of caking on application with the Shade Illuminate, same with the architecture, it's just a running theme with me, but I'm talking minute, and that was only with the magnification mirror, and that's actually gone. So the caking under magnification 10 is gone, so the finish is just beautiful. I don't think, apart from wanting to change my lips a bit, if I was now going out I wouldn't want to do anything to improve my makeup. So this is, it's just brilliant. I mean, you can still see all the products I've placed on top without any setting powder or spray either, which is so good. So less products on my face and a perfect finish. Just the strange thing being that the architecture just looks quite radiant, and this one looks a bit more matte almost. It's still radiant but more matte than the matte one, I think. I'd love to know what you think. Do you prefer a side? There's really not much in it, is there? The coverage looks very similar, the finish is very similar, the radiance is very similar. It's quite bizarre how these are looking so similar. Yeah. I'll just do a little bit of a close-up for you. I'll just come a bit closer to camera so you can see my nose, but it really is looking perfect. So that's Shade Illuminate, sorry. And then architecture. Really, really good, and these are my very dodgy zones. I didn't use my Niacinamide serum, which is what I use all the time to lock in my oils. So I didn't use that either. I just used the Tom Ford primer, which is a good primer, but it doesn't lock in oils for me. So both of these foundations haven't let the oils through. Really, really impressed. And just to see if there's anything coming through at the end of the day transfer wise, this obviously would just be foundation here, nothing else on my face. And the tissue is coming off not spotless actually. There is a little bit of powder there, isn't there? But I'm wondering if that's the bronzer, because it's just coated on the top there, hasn't it? Let me try that again, where I know it really is just foundation. Yeah, there's nothing. So that was the bronzer. And if I do the same on the other side of the tissue with the Shade Illuminate, absolutely the same. So still not coming through. So with all my natural oils having come through, it's still transfer proof, still dry, still covering. Phenomenal. So there we go. That is my final check-in, comparing these two together. And I really don't know which one I prefer, to be honest. I'd love to know what you decide. Let me know, what do you think? If you were going to choose one or the other for me, which one would you suggest I wear? Shade Illuminate or architecture? I really don't know. So as you can see there, quite surprising results with those two foundations. It really did quite surprise me how the radiance is just almost more for me with the architecture. But that's not a bad thing, because for me personally, I do love a radiant foundation, but I want that blurring matte finish too, and this is like giving me the perfect combination. I really am quite pleased with it. If I was going to reach for either right now, it would actually be the architecture, because I think the finish on me is just so good. I love the dry down. I mean, it's so beautiful, it's so skin-like. I really don't think it's obvious, especially on this side here where I didn't use primer. I just don't think it's obvious that you've got that much makeup on at all. It's given you that really perfected finish. I don't think for me personally I could build this up too much, because I think building it up will start to look a bit cakey and a bit overly obvious. But yeah, this is a really fantastic finish. I mean, is this worth £120? It's a bit hard to say, because it really is so expensive, but I am really thinking that there's something a bit magic about both of these foundations that I'm not getting maybe from others. I mean, I love, love, love my Gucci. And I'll just check the price on Gucci. So I've just checked Gucci and it's £47, but you get 14 grams of product. So it's less than half the amount. So this is a little bit more than the Gucci. And I absolutely adore that Gucci one. Anyone who's watched my channel, the new Gucci Cushion Foundation, the shade range is terrible. There's hardly any shades, but when you find the shade, if you can make it work for you, it is just stunning. So at the moment, I think I need to alternate between the two to tell you which one is my favourite, because this one really is rather fabulous. But if you're used to the original one, I'm not sure if you're going to find it quite as matte as the new reformulated one. Like I said, I'm saying reformulated. This is not, I don't think that's been made official. We're assuming it's the reformulated, but it's got that skincare in, and it is a general theme in foundations and lots of makeup that they are introducing skincare, which for me is working very well. My skin definitely prefers it. It's good news for me that my skin prefers it without primer, because it's less products on my face, more comfortable. And I think just generally, if they work with the hydration, then I think that it just gives a better finish. It's making me think of going back to my MAC fluid now and having no primer and trying that without the primer, because maybe that would actually have a nicer finish on me. But what I am finding with these skincare ones, as we keep saying, is it is just giving a bit more radiance. So if you don't like any radiance to show through whatsoever, you might be slightly disappointed with this version. If you are a fan of the original, I would love to hear, if you've tried this, which one you prefer. Are you happy with this one, or did you prefer the old one? And when you look at my video, what do you think about Shade and Illuminate and Architecture? Did you see many differences, and which one do you think maybe looks better? Which one would you pick up, going by the way it looks on me? Obviously keep in mind everybody's different, so how this looks on me does not mean it will look like that on you. As I said at the beginning of this video, my skin changes like the weather. I'm 47, so hormones and age are causing me all sorts of changes in my skin, and every time I think I'm on top of it, it changes. And then we have weather changes, so I don't know whether I'm coming or going with my skin at the moment. So some days it's oily here, some days it isn't, some days it's even a bit of oils here. It's just bizarre. But my skin was traditionally very dry, so I stayed away from these mattes. But I think introducing the hydration into these matte foundations is making them that much better for people who have got a bit of dry skin. So I think if you've got combination skin, you are going to love this foundation, because it will suit the dry and oil areas of your face. If you've got greasy skin, it is giving that little bit of hydration, so you might have a little bit of an issue there. I'm not sure if your oils will come through, or if it will exaggerate them a little bit more. So I'd be interested to hear from anyone, if you're watching this, if you've got greasy skin and you've tried this. I'd be very interested, because of the way it just has this slightly radiant effect. But I say radiant, it's not grease, and as you've seen from every time I've done a test on this, it just absolutely transfer proof. It really is. So if I go through the whole list of everything this promises to do, sorry, that's Florrie, who every single video, sorry, she has to bark. If I go through the list on the website of everything that this promises to do, it's done them. It's blurred, it's given me hydration, it's skin-like, it has longevity, which we saw from the test yesterday. It's beautiful. It really is living up to every single promise. So my overall assessment of this is it's absolutely fantastic. I do think it's overpriced. I do think it's crazy to charge that amount. But if you do want to splurge, personally, from what I've experienced, I don't think you'll be disappointed. They will look beautiful on your beauty shelves or wherever you'd like to display them, and you will feel very special. And this one is particularly good for that evening photo, because it doesn't have the SPF you get in the Shade and Illuminate. So I think for me that's exactly how I would use it, because it's so expensive. Keep it for those special occasions, because you will feel special, you will look special, you will stay looking special. So I think Tom Ford is really onto a winner with this one. Very, very happy with it. So that's all from me for today. I really do hope you've enjoyed this video. I've certainly enjoyed doing this. It's been a really fun review for me. If you have enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe below. It really does help my channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos from me. If you're already subscribed, thank you so much for returning, and I hope to see all of you for my next video. Take care everybody. Bye.